Power is not about muscles. It is not about shouting. It is not even about intelligence. Power is about control. Control over perception, emotion, timing, and human nature. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, people are playing power games around you. In classrooms, in offices, in friendships, in relationships. Someone is influencing, someone is manipulating, someone is observing, and someone is being used. The difference between winners and losers is simple. Some people understand the rules of power, and others don't even know the game exists. In the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene studied centuries of history, kings, queens, generals, politicians, strategists, and discovered patterns. The same psychological strategies repeat again and again. Those who rose to power understood human ego. Those who fell ignored it. Power is not moral or immoral, it is neutral. It depends on how you use it. But if you ignore it, you become a victim of it. Think about it. Why do some people command respect the moment they walk into a room? Why do others get ignored even when they speak loudly? Why do some leaders stay powerful for decades while others collapse in months? It's not luck, it's strategy. And today, I'm going to break down 24 of the most powerful laws that can completely change how people treat you. These laws are not comfortable. They may even challenge your beliefs. But if you truly want influence, respect, and control over your life, you need to understand how power really works, not how we wish it worked. Once you see these patterns, you cannot unsee them. And once you understand them, you stop being manipulated and start becoming strategic. The first law: never outshine the master, is built on a psychological reality. Authority figures want to feel secure. Greene describes how in royal courts, overly talented courtiers were often exiled or executed because their brilliance made rulers feel threatened. The danger was not incompetence, it was superiority. In modern life, this happens in workplaces and universities. Imagine a junior employee who constantly corrects their manager in front of others. Even if the corrections are accurate, the public display can damage the manager's ego. The result may not be open confrontation, but subtle retaliation, fewer opportunities, exclusion from meetings, or blocked promotions. A more strategic approach is presenting ideas in a way that allows the superior to feel ownership. For example, instead of saying, "You're wrong," one might say, "What if we tried adjusting it this way?" The idea still gets implemented, but without triggering insecurity. The law is not about suppressing intelligence. It is about understanding that ego often outweighs logic in hierarchical systems. The second law: never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Questions the assumption that emotional closeness guarantees loyalty. Greene explains that friends may become jealous because they feel entitled to your success or expect equal recognition. Familiarity can reduce caution. In contrast, a former enemy who is given an opportunity often works harder to prove loyalty because they have something at stake. Consider business partnerships. Sometimes two competitors merge companies. The former rival may become extremely dedicated to ensuring success because failure would confirm previous doubts. In everyday situations, think about friendships strained when one person becomes more successful. A childhood friend might unconsciously compare achievements and feel resentment. Meanwhile, someone who once competed against you may respect your discipline and remain more professional. The point of this law is not paranoia, it is observation. Loyalty should be measured by behavior and incentive, not emotional history. Watch who consistently supports you when there is no personal gain. The third law, conceal your intentions, centers on strategic ambiguity. Greene shows how powerful figures throughout history masked their real goals until the moment of action. When intentions are obvious, opponents prepare. When intentions are hidden, others hesitate. In modern environments, oversharing has become common. People announce career moves before securing them. They reveal business plans before execution. They discuss goals repeatedly, draining energy through talk rather than action. For example, imagine a student planning to apply for a highly competitive internship. If they openly share every detail of their strategy, others may apply with stronger preparation or even discourage them subtly. If they prepare quietly and reveal success only after confirmation, they avoid interference. Concealing intentions does not mean constant deception. It means protecting plans during their vulnerable stage. Silence during preparation creates an advantage because others cannot counter what they cannot predict. The fourth law, always say less than necessary, strengthens this idea. Words are revealing. The more someone speaks, the more patterns they expose, fears, weaknesses, contradictions. Greene notes that individuals in positions of influence often cultivated brevity. In meetings, the person who speaks continuously may appear insecure, while the one who listens and speaks precisely commands attention. In negotiation scenarios, overspeaking weakens leverage. Imagine negotiating a salary and nervously listing personal financial struggles. That emotional explanation reduces perceived power. In contrast, calmly stating qualifications and pausing creates pressure on the other side. Silence shifts discomfort onto them. In personal arguments, speaking less prevents escalation. Emotional reactions often reveal more than intended. By controlling speech, a person controls information. When others cannot fully read you, they cannot easily manipulate you. Restraint increases perceived depth, while constant explanation reduces authority. The fifth law, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life, emphasizes perception as a protective force. Greene illustrates how historical figures were often destroyed through rumor before they were defeated physically. Reputation functions as invisible armor. In modern professional life, reputation determines trust before interaction begins. If someone is known for reliability, discipline, and discretion, opportunities come naturally. If someone is known for gossip or inconsistency, hesitation surrounds them. Consider two employees with similar skill levels. One consistently meets deadlines and avoids workplace drama. The other frequently complains and shares confidential information casually. When leadership considers promotions, the decision often rests on reputation rather than raw ability. Reputation also affects social influence. A person known for keeping promises gains long-term trust. A person known for emotional outbursts loses authority even if intelligent. Guarding reputation requires consistency in behavior. Avoid unnecessary conflicts that publicly damage credibility. Address misunderstandings early before they spread. At the same time, study the reputations of others. Knowing how someone is perceived helps predict their behavior and vulnerabilities. The sixth law, court attention at all costs, centers on visibility as a form of power. In the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene explains that everything is judged by appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. Throughout history, rulers and influential figures understood that being ignored is more dangerous than being criticized. In royal courts, those who faded into the background lost relevance and protection. In modern life, this principle operates through media, branding, and social presence. Consider the workplace. Two employees may be equally competent, but the one who presents their achievements clearly, speaks in meetings, and makes their contributions visible often advances faster. Meanwhile, the quiet contributor may remain overlooked despite equal effort. On social media, creators who provoke emotion, curiosity, or controversy gain attention faster than those who remain neutral and invisible. Attention creates opportunity. However, this law does not suggest reckless behavior. It emphasizes controlled visibility. Standing out strategically through style, bold ideas, or calculated uniqueness ensures you are noticed. In competitive environments, invisibility equals powerlessness. The seventh law: get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit, focuses on leverage. Greene draws examples from inventors, rulers, and strategists who built reputations on the labor of others. This is not about laziness. It is about efficiency. Powerful individuals understand that time and energy are limited resources. Instead of doing everything themselves, they organize, delegate, and position themselves at the center of results. In modern business, CEOs rarely design products alone. Teams execute the vision. The leader coordinates, refines, and presents the final outcome. Even in academic settings, group projects often reveal this dynamic. One person organizes tasks, assigns roles, and compiles the final presentation, becoming the visible face of the work. The law highlights perception again. People remember who delivered the result, not necessarily who did each small task. This principle requires strategic thinking. Give others responsibility, while ensuring your name remains attached to the final success. Influence grows when you become associated with achievement, regardless of how much direct labor you performed. The eighth law: make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Shifts the dynamic of control. Greene explains that when you force others to act, you control the situation. When you react to others, you surrender power. Historically, military leaders often lured enemies into disadvantageous positions rather than attacking directly. In modern life, this appears in negotiation and social dynamics. Imagine applying for a job. Instead of repeatedly messaging the employer with desperation, you strengthen your portfolio and create visible value. When your skills become desirable, recruiters approach you. In relationships, the person who appears too eager often loses leverage, while the one who maintains composure creates attraction. In business, companies release limited offers to draw customers in, making them feel they chose to engage. When people come to you, they invest effort. That investment increases commitment. The law emphasizes patience and positioning rather than chasing. By controlling the setting and timing of interaction, you influence outcomes before discussion even begins. The ninth law: win through your actions, never through argument. Recognizes that ego rarely changes through debate. Greene notes that when you argue, even if you prove someone wrong, you create resentment. People dislike feeling defeated publicly. In history, many political rivals lost support not because they were incorrect, but because they humiliated others in confrontation. In everyday situations, arguments often damage relationships more than they solve problems. Consider workplace disagreements. If you openly challenge a colleague in front of others, even with correct data, you may create hostility. A more strategic move is demonstrating results quietly. If someone doubts your method, instead of arguing extensively, execute the plan and let success speak. Actions bypass ego defenses. In personal life, proving someone wrong repeatedly can distance them emotionally. Showing improvement through behavior is more persuasive than endless explanation. This law does not mean avoiding all discussion. It means understanding that visible success influences more deeply than verbal victory. The 10th law, infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky, deals with emotional influence. Greene argues that emotions spread like contagion. Historically, rulers avoided advisors known for constant misfortune or negativity, believing their presence affected morale and decision-making. In modern psychology, emotional contagion is widely recognized. People absorb moods from those around them. Spend enough time with someone who complains constantly, and your own outlook may shift subtly. In professional environments, aligning closely with consistently negative colleagues can harm both mindset and reputation. For example, if a team member frequently criticizes leadership and predicts failure, being associated with them may influence how others perceive you. In personal life, maintaining close ties with individuals who blame others for every setback can drain motivation. This law is not about abandoning people in hardship. It is about recognizing patterns. Occasional struggle is human. Chronic negativity, victim mentality, and repeated chaos signal instability. Protecting your environment protects your clarity. Surrounding yourself with disciplined, solution-focused individuals strengthens your own focus. The 11th law, learn to keep people dependent on you, focuses on creating indispensability. In the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene explains that the more others rely on you for their stability, knowledge, or success, the more secure your position becomes. Power grows when your absence creates difficulty. Historically, ministers who made themselves irreplaceable survived political shifts because removing them would create chaos. In modern workplaces, the employee who understands critical systems, manages key relationships, or possesses unique technical skills often has more leverage than someone easily replaceable. For example, if you are the only person who understands a company's core software infrastructure, your value increases significantly. In social dynamics, the same principle applies. When you become the problem solver, the connector, or the one who consistently brings solutions, people begin to rely on you. Dependence creates stability. The key is to offer value that cannot be quickly duplicated. The 12th law, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim, highlights the psychological power of surprise. Greene describes how unexpected honesty lowers defenses. When someone expects manipulation but receives sincerity instead, they relax. In negotiation or competition, this tactic builds trust quickly. For example, in business discussions, admitting a small weakness early can make you appear transparent, encouraging the other side to reveal more information. In personal relationships, a well-timed act of generosity can shift perception dramatically. The principle works because humans anticipate. When behavior contradicts expectation, suspicion decreases. However, the law emphasizes selectivity. Constant openness removes strategic advantage. Controlled transparency creates influence without surrendering control. The 13th law, when asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude, addresses motivation. Greene repeatedly emphasizes that people act primarily out of personal benefit. Appeals based on sympathy may work temporarily, but long-term support comes from aligned incentives. In professional settings, if you want collaboration, show how the partnership benefits the other person. For instance, instead of saying, "Please help me with this project," frame it as, "This project could strengthen both of our portfolios." In academic environments, when requesting assistance from a professor, highlighting how your research contributes to their field is more persuasive than simply asking for kindness. Self-interest drives action more reliably than emotion. Recognizing this does not make interactions cold. It makes them realistic. The 14th law, pose as a friend, work as a spy, emphasizes information gathering. Greene illustrates how powerful leaders historically relied on intelligence networks to anticipate threats. Information reduces vulnerability. In modern life, this law appears in subtle forms. In competitive workplaces, understanding colleagues' ambitions, strengths, and weaknesses helps you navigate politics carefully. Listening more than speaking reveals patterns. For example, during meetings, observing who aligns with whom, who disagrees quietly, and who influences decisions provides insight that open conversation may not reveal. This law does not necessarily imply deception in everyday relationships. It highlights awareness. Those who collect information strategically are rarely caught off guard. Knowledge allows preparation before conflict becomes visible. The 15th law, crush your enemy totally, presents a harsher principle. Greene explains through historical examples that incomplete victories invite revenge. When rivals are left partially defeated, they often return stronger. In politics, defeated opponents who remain influential frequently organize future opposition. In modern contexts, this can apply to business competition. If a company enters a market and weakens a competitor without securing long-term dominance, the competitor may adapt and retaliate. On a smaller scale, in workplace conflicts, unresolved tension can resurface unexpectedly. Addressing issues thoroughly prevents recurring instability. The law emphasizes finality. Half measures create lingering threats. Strategic resolution ensures that conflict does not quietly rebuild beneath the surface. The 16th law, use absence to increase respect and honor, is built on the principle that scarcity creates value. Robert Greene explains that when something becomes too available, its importance decreases. In royal courts, nobles who were constantly present lost their mystique, while those who appeared selectively were treated with greater anticipation. Familiarity reduces perceived worth. In modern life, this law operates in careers, relationships, and even social media. Consider a professional who is always available, always responding instantly, always agreeing to every request. Over time, their presence feels ordinary. Compare that to someone who chooses appearances carefully, speaks when necessary, and does not overexpose themselves. Their words carry more weight. In relationships, constant availability can reduce attraction, while balanced space maintains interest. Even brands apply this law by releasing limited editions or creating exclusivity. Controlled absence increases curiosity and perceived importance. When people feel they might lose access to you, they begin to value your presence more. The 17th law, keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability, focuses on psychological uncertainty. Greene notes that humans seek patterns for safety. When behavior becomes predictable, others feel secure, controlling, or anticipating you. Unpredictability disrupts that comfort. Historically, Rulers who are unpredictable in decision-making prevented conspiracies, because no one could confidently calculate their reaction. In modern settings, unpredictability does not mean instability. It means avoiding complete transparency in your responses. For example, if colleagues know exactly how you will react in negotiations, they can manipulate the situation. But if your decisions are thoughtful and occasionally surprising, others hesitate before challenging you. In social dynamics, someone who cannot be easily read often commands subtle respect. Predictability invites exploitation. Controlled unpredictability creates caution. The 18th law: do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Warns against withdrawing completely for safety. Greene explains that rulers who isolated themselves often lost touch with reality and became vulnerable to hidden threats. Isolation reduces awareness. In modern life, avoiding interaction to prevent conflict may feel safe, but it limits information. For example, in a workplace, someone who avoids office dynamics entirely may miss shifts in alliances or leadership changes. In business, entrepreneurs who ignore market feedback risk failure because they operate without updated information. Even socially, isolating yourself to avoid drama can weaken support systems. Protection does not come from withdrawal alone. It comes from informed positioning. Remaining connected while maintaining boundaries ensures awareness of emerging risks. The 19th law: know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person, emphasizes evaluation before action. Greene describes how misjudging personality types historically led to unnecessary downfall. Not all opponents react the same way. Some forgive others hold grudges for years. In modern life, understanding personality is critical. For instance, publicly criticizing someone known for pride may provoke long-term retaliation. In professional environments, confronting a superior impulsively without understanding their temperament can damage career prospects. Observing patterns helps determine response strategies. Before making bold moves, assess character, influence, and emotional stability. Different individuals require different approaches. Strategic awareness prevents avoidable conflicts. The 20th law: do not commit to anyone, explores the power of independence. Greene argues that binding yourself completely to one side limits flexibility. Throughout history, leaders who remained neutral between rival factions maintained leverage because both sides sought their support. In modern workplaces, aligning too strongly with one group can be risky if leadership shifts. Remaining professionally neutral often preserves opportunity. In social dynamics, becoming overly attached to one alliance may restrict perspective and adaptability. This law does not promote disloyalty. It promotes strategic flexibility. By maintaining independence, you avoid being pulled into conflicts unnecessarily. When multiple sides value your position, your influence increases. Commitment reduces options. Neutrality preserves them. The 21st law: play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark, revolves around disarming arrogance. Robert Greene explains that intelligence can threaten people, but appearing slightly less sharp lowers their guard. When someone believes they are smarter than you, they relax. Overconfidence blinds them. Historically, strategists have pretended weakness to lure opponents into careless moves. In modern life, this appears in negotiations, business competition, and even academic environments. Imagine a debate where you immediately display all your knowledge. The other person becomes defensive and guarded. But if you ask questions and appear curious rather than dominant, they often reveal more than intended. In corporate settings, an underestimated employee may quietly gather insight while louder colleagues expose their strategy openly. This law does not mean reducing your competence. It means controlling how much of it you display. When people underestimate you, they give you strategic advantage. The 22nd law. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power is about calculated retreat. Greene shows through historical examples that temporary surrender can buy time, reduce hostility, and allow recovery. Fighting every battle drains energy. Sometimes stepping back confuses opponents and removes their momentum. In modern life, this could mean accepting short-term loss to gain long-term positioning. For example, in a workplace conflict, instead of escalating immediately, allowing the other person to feel they won may lower tension and give you space to rebuild influence quietly. In business, companies sometimes retreat from one market to strengthen another before returning stronger. Surrender, when strategic, is not defeat, it is redirection. It shifts power by refusing to engage emotionally in every confrontation. The 23rd law, concentrate your forces, emphasizes focus. Greene explains that power weakens when scattered. Throughout history, successful leaders concentrated resources on one decisive objective rather than dividing attention across too many battles. In modern life, distraction is one of the biggest weaknesses. People chase multiple goals simultaneously, diluting progress. A student trying to master 5 complex skills at once may struggle, while one who focuses intensely on one domain gains visible expertise. In business, companies that attempt to dominate every market often collapse under concentration builds momentum. When energy, time, and resources are directed strategically toward one powerful objective, results compound. Focus creates depth, and depth creates authority. The 24th law. Play the perfect courtier, combines charm with calculation. Greene describes how historical courtiers survived volatile royal courts by mastering subtlety. They flattered without appearing fake. They disagreed without appearing confrontational. They served without appearing submissive. In modern environments, this translates into social intelligence. A professional who understands how to navigate hierarchy smoothly often advances faster than someone technically skilled but socially rigid. The perfect courtier reads emotional cues, adapts tone to audience, and avoids unnecessary ego clashes. For example, presenting an idea differently to a strict executive than to a creative team shows adaptability. This law highlights diplomacy as power. Influence is not always loud. Often, it operates through grace, patience, and emotional awareness. Power is not about cruelty. It is not about manipulation for chaos. It is about awareness of how human nature truly works. Across these 24 laws, one pattern becomes clear. People respond to perception more than intention. Ego shapes decisions. Reputation shapes opportunity. Silence shapes mystery. Visibility shapes influence. Dependence shapes control. Focus shapes dominance. Most people move through life reacting emotionally, speaking too quickly, trusting blindly, revealing plans too early, arguing to protect pride, committing without strategy, and then they wonder why they are overlooked, replaced, or betrayed. The laws reveal that influence is rarely accidental. It is constructed carefully through positioning, discipline, and psychological understanding. You do not have to become ruthless to understand power, but if you ignore it completely, you risk becoming controlled by those who do understand it. These laws do not demand that you harm others. They demand that you stop being naive. They encourage observation before reaction, strategy before emotion, calculation before exposure. When you begin to recognize ego in conversations, insecurity in authority, predictability in behavior, and patterns in reputation, you see the world differently. You notice who speaks too much. You notice who reveals too much. You notice who depends on whom. You notice where influence actually sits, and it is often not where titles suggest. Power operates quietly. It shapes outcomes long before conflict becomes visible. The moment you understand that, you stop playing randomly and start moving intentionally. And once you move intentionally, the game changes.